Alright, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video we'll be talking about probability. Okay, now when it comes to probability, probability has to do with something that might happen. Okay, the possibility of something that might happen in the future, for example. Okay, based on past history, based on statistics, okay, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you have X number of people who get a flu, okay, what are the chances of you getting that flu, for example? Okay, if you have X number of people out of a total suffering from a disease, okay, what are the chances of you, okay, landing on the symptoms of that disease? Okay, if you have X number of people getting injured in a car accident, for example, out of the total number of drivers, what are the chances of you getting into that car accident in a given area? Okay, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and solve the equation, okay, for probability. So when it comes to probability, P stands for probability. Okay, S has to do with total number of successful attempts, for example. Okay, so given an experiment, you have total number of trials, which is basically your N, and total number of successful trials, which will be S. So probability, all right, so probability, okay, equals S divided by N, okay, where S is basically relevant to your success rate. Okay, so we can even talk about board games. Okay, so when it comes to your dice, okay, or your card games, okay, success rate. Okay, N is a total number of trials. Okay, total trials. So if we talk about statistics, this is total number of people or your overall population in a given area. Okay, so out of that overall population, okay, how many people get injured in an auto accident? Okay, and you can use this information, okay, to come up with your premiums, your auto insurance premiums, for example. You can use this information to come up with your life insurance premiums. Okay, you can use this information, the underwriters use this information, may use this information to come up with policy ratings. Okay, charge additional premiums. Okay, so on and so forth. So let's solve an example. So let's say your success rate, okay, this is, okay, out of 20 trials, 10, okay? So your probability will be 10 over 20, which basically means your probability is 1/2, right? Or 50%. All right, let's take another example. Okay, and this one has to do with a board game, for example, Monopoly. Okay, you roll the dice and you want to figure out your chances of landing a particular number or one side of a dice. Okay, so let's say, okay, you roll your dice and you want to know your probability of landing a 4. Okay, so as you might know, a dice has 6 sides, hence you have 6 numbers. Okay, so 4 is one side of a dice. Okay, so this is one side. So we know that this is one side, and we know that total number of sides in a dice is 6. Okay, so 6 is total. All right. So to figure out probability, you divide by 6. All right, so this is your probability. Okay, now if you wanted to figure out your probability of landing anything else apart from a 4 and a 6, for example. Okay, so let's say anything else apart from 4 and a 6. This is 4 and a 6 on a dice. Okay, so we know that there are 6 sides. of a dice. And we know 4 and 6 are basically two sides. Okay, so they add up to two sides. So we know that we're trying to figure out the probability of landing anything else apart from those two sides. So we have 6 minus 2 divided by total number of sides, which is 6. So we know that this will be 4 divided by 6. And we talked about equivalent fraction in the last video. So this will be 2/3. Okay, so this is your probability. All right, so this is basically how you solve for probability. Now, you might land on cases where you might need to figure out the failure factor. Okay, so when it comes to figuring out the failure rather than the success rate, okay, what you will need to do is, change the equation. Okay, so we know that probability equals S over N, which is success over total number of trials, for example. Okay, and if you want to figure out the failure rate, okay, this will be 1 minus S over N. Okay, so this will become, F equals 1 minus P. Okay, because S over N is basically P. So we sub in P, or probability, to figure out the value for P. So now we go ahead and solve for P. So P equals, or negative P equals, F minus 1. Okay, because 1 moves on the other side of the equal to sign, which means it will become negative 1. Okay, which means if you solve for P, this will be negative F plus 1. All right, so your probability will be negative F plus 1. Okay, which is failure. F stands for failure plus 1. Okay, so let's say in the above example, you want to figure out the probability. Okay, and we said that the probability of landing a 4 will be 1 over 6. Okay, so so we know that number 4 is one side of a dice. Okay, which means if you land any one of the other 5 numbers on a dice, that is basically equivalent to failure. Okay, so for this equation, we will use, negative, F will be 5 because the total number of sides on a dice is 6, and out of that 6 sides, the failure rate has to do with the other 5 sides, apart from the side that has the number 4. Okay, so 5 divided by 6 plus 1, and to solve for fractions, we'll use 6. This will become negative 5, plus, this is basically 1 over here, so 1 goes into 6 times. 6 times 1 is 6, so this will be 6, which basically means this will be 1 over 6. The same answer that we got for probability. So you can figure out the probability of something using this formula over here, which is basically S over N, or you can use the failure rate to figure out the probability also. And this formula is basically 1 minus, 1 minus P. So F equals 1 minus P, which basically means that your P equals negative F plus 1. Okay, so again, to figure out the probability of an event, to figure out the probability of something at all, based on statistics, based on past experience, based on the information that you might have on that subject. Okay, you may use these two formulas, and these two formulas will give you that probability that you see. Okay, so apart from that, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics. Have yourself a great day.